Welcome back, everyone, to another All About America's team. It has been a while. It is now December, and when we last recorded, it was early October. But it changes nothing. We're still here. We're going to talk about some Dallas Cowboys football. It's going to be a wild episode for sure. A lot of emotions from the past, the present, and also the future. But before we go any further, I am Ray Nickens, joined with, as always,
Oh, and Chico.
and it's there's been a lot that's happened since we last were here. So let's just dive right into it. There have been 9 games, 9 games since we last spoke with you guys. The Cowboys have played the Chargers, the Eagles twice, the Washington Commanders, the Giants, the Buffalo Bills,
The
um,
Rams
the Rams, and the Seahawks,
and the Panthers.
and the Panthers. So it's been a while. They won all but 2 of those football games, and we have done some math and have determined that I am the exact record of the Cowboys because I have picked them every week, and Owen is 4-10, the exact opposite of the record because he, for some reason, while being a very, big hype man, via Twitter or texting, he actually picks against the team. So we still haven't figured out why that is, but as soon as I do,
Back-to-back years of tanking for a top pick. That's what we're doing.
but they
We're
there
tanking for
no
Caleb.
there's no top pick for you to tank for. Uh, just the only thing that's tanking is your, credibility when it comes to making
Oh,
predictions.
I didn't have any to begin with.
But yeah, once I do uncover the reason why he picks against Dallas every week, I'll be sure to let you know. But we have decided, since if we tried to dive into every game, this show would take 12 hours long. We've decided to just go through a couple of key points for each game. So I will give the floor to Owen, and then I will cap that off myself, and then we can dive into the the Buffalo Massacre, and then talk about the game against Miami on Christmas Eve. So Owen, take it away,
All right.
and
Well,
I will back you up when you're done.
awesome. Well, just before we start, some injury news. Jonathan Hankins will be coming back, hopefully before playoff season, because Dallas has clinched a postseason berth, which is always nice. 3 years in a row where Dallas will be doing that, which at least when I was younger and when Ray, it was not always guaranteed that Dallas is going to make the playoffs. But Mike McCarthy has done a good job of having the team in the postseason outside of the year that Dak went down. But to make this easier, I'm gonna list a week, and then Ray, or I'm gonna give my point, and then Ray's gonna give his point, and then we're gonna go down all the weeks, and then Buffalo, like you said, we'll have a whole thing for, and then Miami, we can get into it. So the Chargers is we did a pregame for the Chargers, and that game I thought that it was gonna have to Dallas is gonna have to win with their offense, and I think that they did. It feels like forever and a year ago, but they did. Dak did a good job of holding on to the ball and limiting Herbert to not go insane. I thought they did a good job, and Dallas Dallas did a good job of making the of just or Dallas did a good job of attacking the Chargers defense. Sorry, when I went to ESPN for a second, Stephen A. Smith started speaking in my ears, and I was like, "What is going on?" One of their ads was going on, but Ray, what are your thoughts on with the Chargers game 9 weeks ago?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, that game was not super high scoring.
20-17.
Yeah, basically from what I think what when we talked about it, I was saying like this was the week, I remember vividly. This was do you trust the defense more or the off, or
Yeah,
what do you not trust?
yeah.
And you were like, I trust the offense more than the defense, and I was like, that's ridiculous. Um, and yeah, I just remember the defense showing up that game and making it, getting to Herbert with their pass rush. which made it a lot more difficult for the Chargers to get any offense going, and that's really been something that's hurt the Chargers. Other than their horrendous defense, it's their ability to protect Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
So guess the one thing that'll say from that game is that Dallas disrupted the Chargers offense enough to where they could never get in a rhythm, and they were able to capitalize and win in a low scoring game.
I could not have said it better myself. But talking about the Rams now, I vividly remember CeeDee Lamb being all over the place. He had 158 yards and I believe 2 touchdowns, 12 receptions. Dak had a really good game. Did throw an interception, but just being able to being able to beat the Rams team that is decimated, but is still really well coached. And Sean McVay is one of the best coaches in the league to be able to beat them. And I do remember that Tyler Smith did a really good job of stopping Aaron Donald, which is not something that he was able to do his rookie year when they put him on an island. But it is a lot easier to pass block as a guard than it is to pass block as a tackle. But
yeah, clearly the Rams are not the same team
yeah,
now that they were then. Obviously, because the Rams had been playing really well and really should have beaten the Baltimore Ravens 2 weeks ago. But yeah, that game was similar to the game before. Cowboys defense was able to get to Matthew Stafford a lot and really, disrupt what the Rams were trying to do on offense. I'm not sure if Cooper Kupp was injured that game or not. Since he has missed a lot of time this season, I
he
assume he
came back for
was,
that game, I
or
believe.
maybe that was his first game back. But yeah, I mean that game was kind of the beginning
Yeah,
of the Dak Prescott surge, maybe. His run of 2 months of a very great play, and we can dive into that a little bit more, I'm sure, for the Buffalo game. And that was kind of the beginning of the high positive praise train and the eventual MVP um um Twitter hype.
conversation. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then Dallas traveled to Philadelphia, which was one of the most painful games I've had to watch. And I remember vividly Ray and I having a hour-long conversation after the game because of Dallas's very poor time management when they had the ball on the last drive. It took them like 3 minutes to go 8 yards. And that was also the first week where Terrence Steele started to get a lot of um, negative attention thrown at him on Twitter and other places. But Dak still had a really good game. Dallas, their defense did a really good job in the second half and played very well. The first half, maybe not so much. But it is always difficult going into Philadelphia and Dallas. Their offense showed up, but the offense showed up until it mattered the most, and the defense was the opposite. They weren't really all that there in the first 3.5 quarters, but then when you needed them to make a stop, they were able to. But at the end of that day, that was one of those Mike McCarthy clock management and Dak just a disaster at the end.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of those games where, I mean, I wasn't it was kind of that beginning. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't have much to say on that game. It was definitely one of the better offensive showings versus a quality team. Of course, I said to Owen then that the Eagles' defense is not good. Their secondary is
Yeah,
not good. And the Cowboys were able to take advantage of that. And a lot of teams have taken advantage of the Eagles' poor secondary. I mean, they fired their DC, or not fired, but they switched DCs midseason, and that didn't really help yesterday. But but yeah, I mean, it was just one of those games where it kind of reminded me that anything positive that I'm going to see from the next upcoming weeks, I will dive into it a bit of the tomato can run. Um, that to not really take that much into it because when Dallas is thrust into a stressful situation, the offense is going to sputter. And it definitely did sputter. Whether you think it's the quarterback's fault or the left tackle or the right tackle's fault or the coach's fault, the offense imploded
Yeah,
on itself, and it's just one of those things that you have to keep in mind.
yeah, for sure. And then after that, they finally gave up a touchdown or points in general to the Giants. It was a fun watch, I guess. Beating up on the Giants is always fun. Um, Again, one of those games where Dak played really well and the defense put up a bunch of points. Uh, yeah, Rico Dowdle played really well. But yeah, this is also the game where Dallas finally realized how to implement Brandon Cooks. Um, Trading for him in the offseason was really huge in my opinion for getting some speed. And for the first 5 weeks, Dallas just did not use him. Their whole offense in general just seemed to be very not good. That doesn't really make much grammatical sense, but just it was not very good. And then over the bye, they were able to fix some things out, and Brandon Cooks had a career was like 10 yards off of having a career day. So, and then after that, he became a fantasy start or a must start fantasy guy, which is always good. But yeah, this is another one of those games where Dallas did a really good job of containing Saquon Barkley, and Danny DeVito threw for 86 yards. So uh, that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, I didn't. Full transparency, I did not watch that game. I was driving home from Dallas, so
I remember that.
the only bits I got from that game were via the radio, and I
Yeah,
quickly turned off the radio because the game was well out of hand and I was getting bored. So
yeah,
yeah, another
yeah. And
typical game against the Giants.
and then Dallas played the Panthers, which was an interesting one. It was very evident that Bryce Young has zero help outside of Adam Thielen, and it looked like Adam Thielen got everything he wanted whenever he wanted. Um, Chuba had a good game, but overall Dallas was favored by a lot to win this game, and they ended up winning it pretty handedly. Deron Bland had another pick six, and as we'll talk about in like 5 minutes, he continued to get some more. But again, it was the Panthers. Didn't really expect much. Hopefully, the only thing that I got from this was that the Panthers are kind of in a very poor situation for the next year or so until they have their picks back. Because Bryce Young, he needs something out there on the offensive line and in pass catchers.
Yeah, the main point takeaway is this was the first game in a while that Owen picked the Cowboys to win. Um, and the Cowboys won by 25 points, I believe. Maybe more. I
23,
think it's 23 points, and
33-10.
yeah, the Panthers scored one offensive touchdown. So while Adam Thielen is getting everything he wanted, apparently they only managed to score 10 points. Um, and yeah, that was another good game for Dak. I think it was a 3 or 4 touchdown game. Um, and they played well overall.
Yeah,
Beat up on a team they should have and covered the spread.
exactly. And then Dallas played the Commanders against Sam Howell. Sam Howell threw for 300 yards and capped the game by Deron Bland getting his fifth record-setting pick six. He now claimed the title for most pick sixes in a season. This was also the first game where Dallas gave up 100 yard. To this point, Dallas had not given up 100 yards to a single receiver or running back, and Curtis Samuel got 100 on the nose. So that was pretty upsetting. But Dak threw for 4 touchdowns. Sam Howell, he threw for a lot of yards, but only scored 10 points. So it's good for Sam Howell, but Dak also had a turkey leg in the Salvation Army. Um, cauldron, if you want to call it, which was kind of funny, and did not get fined for it, which was nice. But it's always good to see them have some fun, and especially when Zeke was a Cowboy, they always had something fun planned for Thanksgiving. But it was a good game. Not really much to say because it's a bad team.
Yeah, just to say again, I was not upset that the Cowboys gave up an 100-yard receiver
Yeah,
or they let Sam Howell throw for 300 yards because again, the Washington Commanders mustered up 10 points and Dallas scored
yeah,
45. So, I was not worried at all during that game. Um, and yeah, that's all I had to say. It was another good game another good performance by the defense and the offense playing up against a really lackluster, poor team that really needs a new, coach and potentially a new quarterback, so
yeah. So now this is in Dallas's schedule where things already get a little more interesting and a little more fun for us to talk about instead of some blowouts. So this game was playing against Seattle, where Geno Smith, DK Metcalf, JSN, and Lockett all decided that they really had to play, that they realized, or they remembered how to play football, and it was a I know that I think Ray has mentioned on this podcast before how Dallas in tight games and when you just need to put a lot of points on the board and your defense is not really playing all that well, that Dak doesn't really have the ability to, but he was able to do it this game. Deron Bland got his lunch money for the next 14 years taken away from him by DK Metcalf. But I was, proud to say that Dan Quinn realized that Gilmore is a better matchup for the taller, more physical wide receivers, and Gilmore did a very good job of stopping DK Metcalf from going off. But Dak, whenever you needed a touchdown or needed something, he gave it to you. And I was pleasantly surprised that that game ended in the way that it did. But again, um, Dallas should not have won that game at the end, and I'll go into the reason why. Because towards the end of the game, Dallas had stopped Seattle on fourth down, and Dallas had the ball, and they decided to throw a fade route on third down instead of just running the ball or doing something more simple. And Dallas had to kick a field goal to only go up by 6 points instead of potentially going up by 10. So all Seattle needed to do was score a touchdown, and they won the game. But Geno Smith and Dallas's defensive line won that game. For whatever reason, on fourth down, they decided to not block Michael Parsons, and he was in Geno Smith's face in like 2 seconds, and that was the reason why he won the game. But overall, the offense kept you in it, and the defense won you the game. But it was an overall great game, and probably the most fun game Dallas has played so far this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, I honestly forgot about that boneheaded,
You
coaching
texted me about it right after.
end of the game. Yeah, that made no sense to me, and it was another reminder that the Cowboys have a very poor management staff and the coaching staff leading the charge. I don't you would nobody is throwing the ball, especially when the Seattle had no timeouts remaining. It made
Yeah,
really no sense, to me whatsoever. And yes, as Owen mentioned, it was the first game in a long time that the Dallas Cowboys offense was in a shootout like that. And it was the first time in a long time that Dak stepped up to the challenge and was able to get a go ahead drive and score and go ahead. So that was a positive. Of course, it's at home. We'll get into the discrepancies between being at home and away in a second. But yeah, it was an overall good showing by the offense and a really good performance by Dak. Um, if I recall, there was something. No, that was a different game and entirely. We'll get to that. But yeah, overall good, really solid game.
yeah. So then Dallas went to the again another one of these home games, which we'll talk about. But they played the Philadelphia Eagles, and this game was important for them because if they won, they would go. They'd be in first place because the Philadelphia Eagles lost to the 49ers in the week prior. This game was wasn't not very competitive. Again, Dan Quinn put Stephon Gilmore on AJ Brown, and apparently, or AJ Brown called him old, and then Gilmore probably had the best game of the back end of his career. Obviously, he won Defensive Player of the Year in 2019, but he outshined Micah Parsons, which was very difficult to do. But he was great and was probably a big reason why Dallas won. Because without him, if he did not make the plays that he made, Philadelphia would have scored a lot more than they did. But Dak had a good game. Terrence Steele did a better job against Hassan Reddick. Um, it was just an overall. Jake Ferguson had a really good game, which was always fun to see. Again, it brings up the question again: why did Dallas draft Luke Schoonmaker? Because you already had a really good tight end in the 4th round the year prior. But just looking at what people have said that are far wiser and smarter than me, Luke Schoonmaker is a really good blocker, and allowing him to block allows Jake Ferguson to strictly be a receiving tight end. So I understand, but a 2nd round pick is still a pretty penny. There were other positions of need that are just other positions that pick could have been used more wisely on. But Jalen Hurts did not play all that well. It was just he had a fumble. There were 3 fumbles that Philadelphia had, which was which was a big. Well, they couldn't do anything outside of that, but it did not help their case. It's always good to see Nick Sirianni lose because that man whines and cries a whole lot, and he fits Philadelphia well. But that's another one of those games that should have been a lot better, but Philadelphia just did not play well.
Yeah, I mean the difference between this game and the one up in Philly is Dallas was able to turn the turnovers
Yeah,
from the first game that Philadelphia were ended up recovering into actual turnovers. They forced 3 fumbles. They really imposed their will a lot better. I know the one thing I did want to bring up because it's fresh in my mind. The strip sack fumble return for a
yeah,
touchdown that kind of could have flipped the game. And there was a moment in Dallas's immediate drive after where it seemed like to me that the offense, Dak especially, was a little rattled. He threw a couple that were very dangerous passes that were fortunately not picked off, and then from there they were able to settle down and kind of
yeah,
cruise the rest of the way.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where the defense showed up. The Philadelphia defense themselves were again their secondary really were attackable, and Dallas was able to execute and attack them efficiently, and then the defense was able to wreak havoc on Jalen Hurts in the pass rush, but forcing turnovers and getting them off the field. So it was overall
yeah,
a really strong win.
yeah. And on top of that, it was kind of out of character on that strip sack fumble, where I watched the play again because I was curious, and Zach Martin got dominated by Fletcher Cox, and if Dak had like a second extra of time, Brandon Cooks is open for a touchdown. So that's the reason why he was sacked and why he was stripped, because there was Cook was open, but Zach Martin just got beat by Cox, which I thought was just funny, but also sad because yeah, yeah, but some context there.
There was no context that needed to be said.
All
No
right, well,
no context. They still
well,
won by a lot.
okay. Well, now that we're in the present, let's dive into the Buffalo game. Just I'm just gonna read some stats out for you. Dallas missed 17 tackles, and in 2020, when Dallas's defense was the worst ever in all of football and all the history, at their in one single game, the highest amount of missed tackles they had was 13. Another stat for you. Dallas has been flagged 15 times for defensive offsides, and the league average is 3.94. And Dallas has had 11 defensive holdings, and the league average is 4.66. So on the first drive, Dallas deferred and Josh Allen got the ball. And if DeMarcus Lawrence, roughing the passer, Josh Allen has this thing where he likes to flop like LeBron 5 yards off a push to tell a flag, and they called it, so it was a roughing the passer. But in there, to when Buffalo went up 21-0, there were three all on the first three drives. There was a game or the drive changing penalty. You had DeMarcus Lawrence one, and you had the J-Ron curse on the second drive where the helmet to helmet. And then the third was Sam Williams being the most, or continuing to show that he is the most undisciplined player on this team, which is pretty hard to beat. Outside of that, in one of the drives that Dallas had where they kicked the field goal, or they might have punted on it, Tony Pollard ran really well, and they called a holding on Tyler Smith, and they called it like 5 seconds after Tony Pollard was tackled. So again, call it whatever you want it to be. Dallas's offense never played. Neither side of the ball played well. I felt like Dallas had the ball offensively for all of like 45 seconds throughout the game, and they looked awful for all 45 seconds outside of the first drive. Their defense did not play well. There was that one clip where the Bills left guard, he drove Marquise Bell back 14 yards, and it's a lot of people have been talking about it, especially Emmanuel Acho. Dallas has contact positions filled by non-contact players. Going into the season, Dallas had Leighton Vander Esch and DeMarvion Overshown as your two linebackers, but both of those players are hurt. So you have Damone Clark, who is a linebacker, and then you have Marquise Bell, who is a UDFA out of one of the schools in Florida, who does not have the frame of a linebacker playing linebacker, and he's been great. But it's very obvious that he gets pushed around a lot, which is difficult to do when, it's tough to play, especially when Jonathan Hankins goes down and you have basically a UDFA plus Mozzie Smith on the inside, and Mozzie had a sack, which was kind of cool. Surprisingly, he graded PFF is nonsense, but they gave him a good pass rush grade, and he had like a 20 run defense grade, which is kind of funny. But overall, Dallas, their defensive line was bullied and beat. Josh Allen threw for 94 yards, and another boneheaded play. Dallas stripped Stephon Diggs, and Mike McCarthy did not call a timeout or did not challenge it because he said that there wasn't enough time, and he was trying to hear from Dallas's guys up top if it was worthy of a challenge. And Buffalo did a really good job of snapping the ball before Dallas could do anything. But it was obvious that Marquise Bell, I think it was him, that he knocked the ball out. But it's one of those games where like nothing went well for Dallas. I don't think that it's one of those games where like it completely where it's like season ending, where like this is gonna be a thing where I hopefully Dallas in this week in practice can fix things, because when you play Miami on Sunday and when you play Detroit, you're gonna be playing two teams that can run the ball well, and Raheem Mostert has 20 touchdowns, or 19 or 20 or 20. So it's going to be tough to stop him. And then regardless of what seed you get in the NFC, you're going to have to play a team that can run the ball well. And I'm sure that Philadelphia would love to be able to run on this defense based off of what they put on tape last week. But James Cook had a great game, and just looking at where he ran the ball, a lot of his rushes for big yards were on the outside, were on the edges, and there was some crazy stat like most of his yards, like he didn't get touched until 4 yards after from the line of scrimmage, which is not great. But I think overall this game, just to be able to fix things, you're going to need to get a better D. You have to sign a new D tackle. And also, what I would suggest doing is that I mentioned this before, but Micah does not have the size that guys like Crosby or Miles Garrett or both or either the Bosa brothers. And it'd be much better if you put, in my opinion, for when you're getting like a lot of it's been talked about. There's been a lot of discourse about moving him to linebacker for moments like this and having your DNs be Sam Williams and Demarcus Lawrence, who are both bigger and who have both had success against the run. Because Micah is a lot is has more of the body type of a linebacker. But I'm curious to see what they're gonna do because stopping Raheem Mostert and Achan is gonna be difficult while also trying to stop Waddle and Hill, which no one has been able to stop either of them so far. But we'll get into that a little bit later. But the game was just it was not good. But I'm curious to see what you have to say, Ray.
Well, first and foremost, it's very easy to get a solid pass rushing grade when the passer only attempts 15 passes. So you're automatically going to have a pretty solid grade if the sample size of passing is very low. But I'm not even going to discuss Mozzie Smith because it is beneath me at this point. His lack of play says all I need to know. But
Yeah, he has not played well at all.
I do want to address when I was watching the game, became very clear to me that Buffalo were running 2 plays, really. They were running stretch, which is this is Madden terms, by the way. I'm sure it's not actually called
Yeah,
stretch in their playbook, but they were running stretch or they were running some sort of power run
yeah,
where they would run to the outside. And correct me if I'm wrong, Owen, but
mhm.
isn't Demarcus Lawrence known as a very great run stopping defensive end?
Yes, he is.
Wouldn't his job be in those scenarios to set the edge and
Yeah.
bring the okay, just making sure.
Well,
He and
you're gonna need more than
him and
him to be able to do that.
Armstrong and Sam Williams, if he was playing, had a really terrible, awful game of setting the edge and forcing the running backs back inside because as you said, all their yards came from the outside. Once they got past the end of their offensive line, it was pretty empty.
Yeah,
And they were running for 5 plus or 10 plus 5 plus yards, 10 plus yards, 15 plus yards. And what really alarmed me before I kind of move on from the defense into the offense was just the lack of adjustments. It's very clear that the defensive coaching doesn't really adjust um, when things are not going well. It was very clear that the Buffalo Bills were going to run the entirety of the game, and they weren't going to stop. And the fact that the Cowboys refused to make any effort to stop that or adjust or do anything was really alarming. And I have been very positive for Dan Quinn when a lot of people haven't after a couple of bad games. But this is an alarming thing for me because if you're not going to adjust and make adjustments to help your defense out there, then it's not a good sign. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that Micah Parsons did in no way, shape, or form should the Dallas Cowboys stop using him the way that they are, because that is his strength and what makes the defense work. But they need to figure out a way to protect him in the run game.
yeah,
And whether that is giving, and I heard this on different shows from defensive players who used to play, and it was a lot of something just giving him a job like see ball, chase ball. Because I mean they're leaving him unblocked. They don't block him, and he kind of doesn't know what to do. So I mean, I think giving just saying, hey, follow the ball, see ball, get ball, or just um I don't know, just giving him, like, one easy job because it seems like he doesn't read well when it comes to the run game, so he's all over the place. So just giving him one specific job would help. Um, as for the um, as for the undersized personnel, I mean, they did it to themselves. They had plenty of opportunities to acquire guys who are better fit to play the specific roles that they wanted to do, but they chose to play Von Bell, who is a safety turned linebacker, and Micah Parsons, who's an undersized edge rusher. So it's really on themselves that this happened, but I mean there are ways to, I'm sure, mask it, and you got to be able to adjust. But there I don't want to hear, not saying that you are, but the complaints from the fans or anyone like, oh, they're undersized, don't blame them, blah blah blah. Well, they had an opportunity to sign people to help them not be undersized and to help them in these certain situations. And they chose not to do that and stick with their guys. And that's what I've been really upfront about being annoyed with is the Cowboys don't make those moves to, you know, improve or fix anything. They're just, we like our guys and we're going to stick with our guys. And most of the time it ends up becoming an issue at some point. So that's all I'm really going to say about the defense. Again, like you said, there are two teams that really rely on running the football and are going to try and attack Dallas doing the same way, especially Miami, who doesn't have a great offensive line. So it's really crucial for Dallas to start fast and get some points up on the board, because that's when their defense really does its job, is when they have the lead and are forcing opposing teams to pass. And I think if they can kind of get back to doing that, they should be fine. But that's all I kind of had to say on the defense. In regards to the offense, I mean, it was really disappointing to watch Dallas, especially Dak Prescott, go on this huge run of, putting up glorified numbers against tomato can opponents, and then turn around and blow a game like this on the road when you really have a chance to, looking back at yesterday, really had a chance to really take control of the division. And to have 70 or 80 yards passing in mid fourth quarter is really just pathetic. And really should have thrown 5 interceptions, only threw one, but there were plenty of balls that should have been intercepted that weren't. I know that's the name of the game, but it was just really alarming. And the main thing I want to talk about for the offense is Mike McCarthy has been getting a lot of praise for fixing things and having this really great offense. Has been doing really well, and I have given him credit. But in the back of my mind, I was always thinking, let's see what he does against a quality opponent who is known for their defense. And I was just kind of circling that Buffalo Bills game because I knew Philadelphia, while have a good record, their defense is suspect. Seattle defense is suspect, especially in the back end. They have a lot of young players in the secondary. And I was kind of looking at Buffalo and I was like, okay, Buffalo, they're banged up in the secondary, but they have been pretty good the last few weeks. And they've done a good job of holding, top offenses to not a lot of points. And sure enough, they were able to completely lock down CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, Michael Gallup, and really just kind of shut that offense down. And the Mike McCarthy offense kind of reverted back to what it looked like against San Francisco, which was very just bland, not a lot of adjustments, not a lot of um, creativity, and it was just a little bit disappointing. So, I mean, when you're um, especially on the road too, having a 3-4 record on the road, and your three losses are against teams that have a lot of wins, and then you have the lost Arizona, which it happens, and then your only wins are against the Giants, Washington, and what was the other game? What was the other game that they won? Was it the Rams? No, it wasn't the Rams. Who did they beat on the road? They beat the Giants once, Washington once, and then
Um, Carolina or I'll check right now.
yeah, there's one other team that they beat
They
on the road.
beat the Chargers,
Oh yeah, the
the
Chargers.
Panthers, and the Giants. So they're 3-4 on the road.
Yeah, 3-4 on the road. Yeah, I mean, it's really disappointing that the three, big losses on your schedule are blowouts to the Buffalo Bills, blowouts to the San Francisco 49ers, and then a close loss to the Philadelphia Eagles, which you really should have had that game won and kinda,
Yeah.
imploded. So, it leaves me a lot of lack of confidence, and Dak Prescott, while he was definitely an MVP candidate and he had my vote going into the game against Buffalo, it, kinda reminded me of just the situation that we have with Dak Prescott and his lack of just the lack of being able to, um, really do anything. It was not a good showing from the passing game or the offense in general, and he would not get my MVP vote after that game. So that's kind of my
Yeah.
whole thoughts on the matter. Also, Mike McCarthy, I just he really bothers me, and um, the penalties, like the fact that the Dallas Cowboys are leading the league in penalties again, um, number one penalized team. The penalties that you mentioned, the defensive offsides. Like I know you say like that's a player thing, but lining up offsides is one of those things where like if you they have to be going into the film room after every week and being like, "Hey, stop lining up offsides. It's not that hard." And then for it to happen over and over and over again, it's like, what are they telling the players in the locker room after those games? So that's just really bothering me. Also, just a quick point before I hand it back over to you. Thought it was really funny that Demarcus Lawrence got all puffed out his chest after the Philadelphia game with that sound bite, and then the very next week, the defensive line just got pummeled by the Buffalo Bills running game. So, just another reminder how soft the Cowboys team is inside the locker room. Um, but, maybe they'll have some soul searching and blow the house off the Miami Dolphins and the Detroit Lions, and then we'll be back to square one with really saying, okay, the only team that can really do anything to Dallas is San Francisco, who are pretty much going to do anything they want against any team in the NFC. So that's
Yeah.
kind of where I am.
To go to your 2 points, yeah, Dallas definitely could have signed other people, but Um, I don't know. I don't think that Darius Leonard is the answer because I think that I don't. I'm probably on Twitter way more than I should be, but there have been a lot of clips where he's not playing well, and all of Philadelphia wants. First of all, they want Hurts off the team, but they also want Leonard off the team, and also just the Colts. They're in a playoff push, and they dumped the guy. And if personally, if you're paying a guy that much money, I understand like wanting to get rid of him, but that also means that his performance is not worthy of the contract and means that you think that you're better off without him. So Darius Leonard, him and Leighton Vander Esch earlier in their careers were two of the young, really up and coming linebackers, and then it's just sad to see the injuries have hurt the both of them. And Leighton Vander Esch probably retires after this year. But to talk about the offense, yeah, the offense did not play well. But personally, even if they were to play well, I don't think that it would have mattered much because Buffalo had 180 yards rushing and they they control the time of possession. So even if Dallas scored on those drives and Dak played well, I don't really think that it would have mattered much. Which it was still very sad to see. But I think that if there's like a chain of command for issues, I think the defense needs to figure their stuff out because I personally do not want a rerun of 2018 in LA where Dallas offense plays not amazing, but they play all right, and then you lose because CJ Henderson has the game of his life. Um, but with the whole "we like our guys," um, yeah, I didn't really understand when and you and I talked about this, in the off season, like, the linebacking position I didn't really feel great about, and then Overshown played really well in preseason, and then I didn't understand why Dallas only had like 2 linebackers on the roster, and they cut Devin Harper, um, which you could have used. I didn't really understand that move. I didn't. They're probably going to have to go linebacker in round one of the draft in 2024 if there's a good one. I know that Oklahoma has a good one, so maybe they could get him if he declares for the draft. But overall, the game was really bad. Again, for what it matters, I think DeMarcus Lawrence graded well against the run. Again, it's you need more than one guy to play well on that side, on either side, and especially it was just an overall really bad. And yeah, it is always kind of ironic that whenever they I understand DeMarcus Lawrence talking because it's Philadelphia, but something always seems to happen. But I think that, you know, like losses tend to do, either this loss is gonna the loss because Philadelphia lost last night, Dallas really has the opportunity to, because Philadelphia, if both teams win out, it comes down to strength of schedule. And while Philadelphia played like Kansas City and other teams, it doesn't. It's going to have to be like after week 18 thing to decide who played the better schedule. But I don't. If Philadelphia does not make any changes, I'm curious to see if they'll beat um if they'll beat the Giants.
They will beat the Giants.
I think it'll be a
It,
fun game
will.
to
It will
watch.
not be. They will beat the Giants.
It'll be a fun game. I don't know. And then they play Arizona. And who knows what's gonna happen there.
See, Arizona is a team they could lose to, but not the
Yeah.
Giants.
And so if if I could be wrong here, but I think that if Giants lose any game, Dallas can lose against Miami and still be fine, I think, because the NFC or the conference record will be worse for the Eagles. So, but yeah, it doesn't. But overall, the game was not great. And like I was saying before, it's either going to make them a better team overall, or it's going to cause them to crumble. Which in years past, they have done a lot of the latter. But they go back to the MVP conversation. Dak, I don't think Dak was winning it regardless. I was even if this play continued, it's going. I think either Purdy or CMC is going to win it, and they're probably going to give it to Purdy. He's going to lock up the 1 seed. If they beat the Ravens, then he'll get it. But if they lose to the Ravens and they end up with the same record as Dallas and Philly, I'm curious to see who gets the 1 seed. But if it was always going to be one of them because Dallas wasn't going to win the 1 seed, and Purdy. Yeah, and honestly, the MVP, I don't. It would have been a cool accolade, and it would have.
Oh, I'm. That's enough. If Dak Prescott would have won MVP, you would have lost your mind and would have hung it over my head till the end of
It
time.
would have been
It
great.
would
It
have
would have been
been
great for sure.
ecstatic. It would have been cool to see. It would have been the
It
greatest
would have been
thing
great
to
for
ever
sure. But also, it wouldn't really have changed people's perception, and it would have also been the year
I
that
mean, it would
guys.
have changed. I mean, it would have changed my perception. I would have been like, "Wow, he won an MVP." And when he became the favorite, which you might have not known, but Dak
He
Prescott was
was.
the favorite to win MVP going into the Buffalo game. So if he had stayed on track, he would have been the
He
favorite.
could still win it. It's
He would
not
have.
he could still win it.
He could, but I very much doubt that he will.
Yeah, he's gonna have to have a great game. I'm just saying that I would much prefer them win a ring than him have an MVP. And obviously, and all that I'm saying is that you're in a year where Mahomes doesn't have a good wide receiver, so he's gonna have a down year. Herbert is out, Burrow is out, T Law is out. So in my opinion, regardless of who wins,
T-Law is playing, and he
well,
has. By the way,
he's been injury prone.
this will make you very happy. T-Law has the same record as a starter as Daniel Jones, and basically the
Yeah,
same stats. So,
yeah.
take that for what you for how you want it. But
Yeah.
the only thing I was saying is if Dallas had won yesterday, or if Dak had shown really anything at all the pulse, um,
Nobody
in
on
the
offense did.
in
CeeDee Lamb
well,
couldn't get
no,
separation.
I understand, but with the purpose of the
Yeah,
MVP conversation, I'm gonna talk about the guy who was favored to win the MVP. If if he had shown anything of a pulse and had played well and had continued to
yeah,
play well through the end of the year, the MVP voters would have voted Dak to win MVP. One, because he was not Mr. Irrelevant, and two, he does not have McCaffrey, Debo,
yeah.
Ayuk, Trent Williams, a juggernaut of a team, and he would have been the favorite. So
Well, it's
also
going to be interesting.
number two, him winning if he had won if he had won the MVP, or if he does win the MVP, it would have told me, one, okay, he was able to handle the pressure being favored and got the job done and won the MVP, which would have been a positive. It would have changed my perspective on him. And two, he would have been the first Dallas Cowboy quarterback to win the MVP, which puts him in a spot of his own. So that would
Yeah.
have been another positive. But
Well, if
that was just overall disappointing that
yeah,
he had put himself in the catbird seat. He was in perfect position and he completely squandered it. And now he's not going to win the MVP because
it's
I don't see them giving it to him. It's either going to be Lamar Jackson, which is ridiculous because he doesn't have the stats to be MVP, or it's going to be Brock Purdy because they're not
well,
giving it to the running back.
if Purdy wins on Sunday or on Monday, then he wins. If he loses and Lamar doesn't play well, and if Dak plays really well over the next 2 weeks, he's probably not unless Dallas can get the one or the two seed. And if the five is locked, Dallas is not playing against the Commanders. So Dallas or Dak is currently number two in touchdowns without even throwing one last week. This week obviously is gonna hurt some things. But if it could still happen. But again, CeeDee Lamb didn't play well. There was no separation. The offensive line did not play well. Dak certainly did not play well, but it's really hard to do anything when you drop back and you're sacked within 2.5 seconds. Again, he did not play well at all. There were a lot of bad throws, and yeah, he should have had like 7 interceptions.
It would have been
Um,
it was really unfortunate too, because if he had like two like one more pick or two more picks, and I would have been right there to get my $100 off of Owen, which, by the
well,
way, we do have a bet, very one-sided bet. I don't know why you agreed to this, but if Dak throws 10 interceptions, then he owes me a nice $100 bill. And if he doesn't throw 10 interceptions, then he gets nothing. So
I'm not.
it was really
I don't want your money, but
one-sided bet.
but
But
overall, I think that learning from this game, I think personally, if Philadelphia won, I think that Dallas probably is would have laid back and been like, all right, like it is what it is. We're not getting the division, so. But now that Philadelphia lost, Dallas's life, and like you said, the whole locker room knows that they have not played well on the road, and they're going to want the two seed because if they get the two seed, that means that they're going to play a, a inferior team, and then Philadelphia's, if they win, is going to play the San Francisco 49ers, and then Dallas is probably going to play Detroit, and then if Dallas beats Detroit, then Dallas will go on the road to San Francisco if San Francisco wins. And and San Francisco week 5 was pretty much it was a lot of Dallas fans showed up. So if Dallas gets the 2 seed, they should be all right. But they're gonna have to beat Miami, which is gonna be super difficult to do. And beating Detroit, excuse me, I don't know what version of Jared Goff's gonna show up. Um, and the Commanders, Cooper Rush got that. But yeah, it was definitely sad to see. But there, people were already saying that this MVP was like a Mickey Mouse one because the top 5 quarterbacks were out So they were going to give it to somebody that was undeserving of it. But again, yeah, if Dak won it, that would have been amazing. But I think that if he still gets beat out in round 1 or round 2 of the playoffs, I don't think that would have changed much. It probably would have given him a much better resume for the Hall of Fame. But I don't think that it would have changed people's perception of him much because I don't think that he can do anything to change it. I think that you either like him or you don't like him. And he's played really well this year, the best year of his career, which I think has a lot to do with Mike McCarthy and his ability to, he does everything well. He does everything outside of like his job of being head coach isn't great, but he's worked himself into a contract extension because of his ability to call plays.
Has he?
Yeah, the team is
Do
way
you
better than they
do you
were.
think the Cowboys would well, obviously, he's gonna get extended because it's Jerry Jones, but do you think in another scenario, if Dallas were to lose again in the divisional round, that he would get his job back?
Um,
Showing that they
if
changed
if the
coordinators
offense
and
plays well, if the because Kellen Moore has not even with Herbert, they were not their offense statistically was worse.
but
And
Kellen that's irrelevant. The point is they got rid of a coordinator,
no, I know that.
and they
I'm just
brought a new
saying that
coordinator, and they would still get bounced, let's say,
yeah,
to San
if
Francisco.
their offense plays well, then I think he stays. If their defense if their offense does not play well, then I'd get rid of him personally. But it's been night and day the offense from the beginning of the year to now. They're actually, doing what like you said, what the West Coast offense is for, where you take deep shots, and they've been doing well in that aspect. They've been running the ball a lot better the last few weeks, and Dak is having the best year of his career statistically because of the new offense and his ability to have more control and do what he likes to do and having a more all around just a good offense around him. But if they don't get open, it's kind of hard to do much. But again, he did not play well because he had a lot of overthrows. But beating Miami, I think that the jury is still out on Tua and his ability to do much. So this week is going to be an interesting week. It's going to be the battle of the tomato can beaters, and whoever wins um, is probably I don't know what's going to happen, but if Dallas wins, though, I think that people's perception of what they're able to do that's probably the best non-San Francisco 49ers offense that they will have that they will face the rest of the year unless they make it to the big bowl. But it'll be I have no idea what Dan Quinn's gonna do to stop Tyreek Hill and company. But I'm curious to see what it is. I don't think it's gonna be great. I think that Dak's gonna need to play well. And I don't really know if CeeDee Lamb is gonna be able to beat Jalen Ramsey consistently. So I don't really have high hopes. But yeah, personally, I don't think that Dallas will play all that well throughout the rest of the season. But I'm curious to see what they have in store for this week because getting beat that badly and still being first in the division is a gift. And Dallas is not known for not playing good football in December and January. Um, this game was well, Buffalo and Miami are the two games that you and I both kind of like starred in the beginning of the year when we had when we talked with Kelly and Mike. So I'm curious to see what they do, but I don't think it's going to be unless I don't have high hopes for it. I don't know who's going to be able to run with Hill or Waddle.
Well, the good news is that nobody can run with Hill and Waddle Um, what's beaten the Miami Dolphins is pressure, and the one thing that the Dallas is good at is bringing pressure on the opposing team's quarterback. So the key for Dallas is to have a pulse on offense to start fairly quickly, and then just continuing to bring wave after wave of pressure on Tua, and just get to him before he can get the ball out to Tyreek down the field and do their best to contain him. Gonna be a lot of, you know, too deep shell coverage, keeping them in front of them. Dan Quinn is I hope intelligent enough to do that and not do single high or any BS man coverage or anything like that. So really what's going to come down to is Dallas being able to win with their matchups outside. Ramsey's been playing really well in the secondary, showing that he is one of the top corners. So it's going to be a huge test for CeeDee Lamb. Brandon Cooks will probably have to be relied on a little bit more, as well as the tight end. And just to kind of get the ball to CeeDee Lamb whenever the opportunity is there. But I do think that Dallas is very capable of beating Miami, especially since Miami is a weaker opponent compared to or a weaker opponent in the sense of you know strength of schedule and quality wins and such as a Buffalo or a Philadelphia or a Kansas City or a San Francisco or any of that. So I do think Dallas definitely has a chance to beat them, but it will come down to whether or not they can kind of control the what Miami's offense is doing in the sense of being able to kind of force them to rely on the pass or not. I will say Miami's running style is a little bit different than Buffalo. It's not a physicality running, as as James Cook was doing. Mostert's a lot more of a smaller back, and then A Chan is a shifty speedster. So we'll see if Dallas can kind of match up well in that regard and kind of have a. I mean, I could see them being a little bit more capable of stopping that kind of running style than more of a physical running style, but we'll see. I don't really know. But we'll definitely find out. And I mean, win or lose, I'm not gonna really change my opinion on Dallas. Because I'm just gonna be able to I'm gonna look back and see what happened when they played a Buffalo or San Francisco. But, I do think it is a, a confidence booster for the players to kinda get that win after a tough loss and then be able to kinda make that final push into the postseason. Because I mean, whether they say it or not, winning regardless of your seed, does matter for, morale in the locker room.
Yeah, for sure. I think that all of the teams that you mentioned like have been beat pretty badly. I think it's this might have happened like earlier, like and throughout other years, but I feel like every contender has been embarrassed at least once. 49ers got embarrassed by the Browns with a backup quarterback and a bunch of their guys out. The Eagles have been embarrassed numerous times in the last 3 weeks, and Dallas has been embarrassed um, 3 times now. You can say four if you want to count the Eagles' loss. But um, since 2018 or even before that, they've been really bad against the run. And again, when you draft a defensive tackle that people expect to have a day one impact, when defensive tackles are not, unless you're Aaron Donald, they're like a pass rushing guy like Quentin Williams or a lot of the other well known ones. It's going to kind of take some time for them to get accustomed to playing in the NFL, and they've been defensive tackle. Again, I don't know. I'm not obviously not a defensive tackle, but people that study football and just from reading other people, they said that defensive tackles kind of takes a few years to get in, and you can't really judge until year three or the year after that. But again, as of right now, Mozzie's played pretty poorly, and I think he probably have a big game to just to play well, to Dallas to play well. But going off what you said with pressure, I do not if I see Micah Parsons line up against Trent Williams 56 times, I don't think I'll watch the game.
Well, good thing they're not playing Trent Williams because they're playing Miami this week.
Sorry, Teron Armstead. I would much. It would be good for him to play on the right side against a lesser tackle.
Well, I'm sure he'll
So
do that.
I meant to say Armstead. Sorry, not Trent Williams.
Yeah. Well, what is your score prediction?
Um,
I mean, I know what your overall prediction is because you made it very clear to me off camera. But what is your score prediction?
um, I'll say 30-13 Miami.
Okay. Um,
I just I like again like the pressure, like you're 100% right. And Dallas does that very often, but I don't know what they're gonna do. I don't know how they're gonna do it. But Miami's defense is pretty solid. So I just again, and also Dallas has not lost back to back in several years. So you have that going for you, Ray. But I don't really expect Dallas to stop the run. And I think that when you look at Dallas's tape, Tua may not throw the ball often. Um, so it'll be. I'm curious to see. I'm not going to be able to watch the game because I'm going to be at church for the first half of the game. So hopefully by halftime or the third quarter, beginning of fourth, things aren't out of hand. I'll have to record the game to be able to watch to be able to fully watch and understand what happened, regardless of a win or a loss. But yeah, I don't know. I think they have a really good coach and who's offensive minded, and I don't really have much faith in Dan Quinn. He's been great the last few years, but I don't know who they would bring in because I think that if you get rid of Quinn, you're gonna upset Micah, and if he leaves, you're gonna upset like half the defense. And also Malik Hooker should be back, so that'll be good because then you can have him free roam in the back, and you can have Jaron Curse and Donovan Wilson play inside the box instead of playing positions that they should not be in. I don't want Curse to attack me on Twitter, but positions that they are the normal position that they should be in. But I don't know. Hopefully, I'm wrong, but I have much more faith about the Detroit game than this one.
okay. Well, I'm taking Dallas to win 27-21. And I think that overall, just as a close, if you believe Mike McCarthy should keep his job and that he is the reason for Dak Prescott to be doing this well, then you shouldn't be picking them to, score 13 points in a big game like in this. There should be a little bit more, in my opinion, and this is coming from someone who doesn't really believe in Mike McCarthy.
No,
There should be a little bit of, I believe that this offense can play well against quality opponents, and the quarterback can play well consistently against quality opponents. And it's a little bit weird that you say that and then you pick Miami to win by 3 scores
I
as well.
I can go into more detail if you care to hear.
Sure, why not?
After you go into more of a reasoning for why you think that Dallas will win, I will
Oh,
give.
okay. Well, I
I
think
will
Dallas
talk.
will win because Miami does not do well as an offense against pressure. And the thing that Dallas does really well is getting to the quarterback. So I think if Dallas can, as I said, get a good start on defense, get a couple stops, score a couple, touchdowns on offense, kind of switch the mindset of Miami to be more, one dimensional, then they should be able to control the game and win pretty convincingly. I don't think they're going to win like in a blowout. That's why I think it's going to be a one score game. But I do think Dallas can steal one on the road in this scenario. 27-21.
Well, that would definitely be a good confidence booster. But to go back into why I could be very wrong, but I just on recollection, I don't remember a game where CeeDee Lamb gets completely taken out and then Dak has to fully rely on the rest of the team to be able to have success. And I think that Lamb, other thing that was weird, just sorry, sidetrack, that Dallas has over the last few weeks since the bye has done a lot more motion, and they completely went away from that after the first drive in Buffalo, which is weird because they've been playing a lot better when they do motion and stuff of that nature. And I don't, so to, I don't think that Dallas on offense is like forgets how to play football. I just think that it's called differently, and whoever you want to blame, Mike, Brian Scottemeyer, Dak, the person who hands out lunch. I think that it's just Dallas needs to stop trying to be a completely different team, and they need to just do what they are good at. And yeah, so but if Buffalo runs the ball well and dominates the time of possession, then again, Dak's gonna have to have like a near perfect game. And on the road against quality teams, he has not shown that he has that is something that can happen. Now, I do think that Dak this season, to go back off of what you said, is like I think that he was this good before his ankle injury, before he broke his ankle, even though that a lot of that was like down by 30 and go win the game. And there have been spurts of his career he's played of this level. But I think that an offensive coordinator who, regardless of what Aaron Rodgers wants to say, his best years outside of winning the MVP, his better, some of his great years were with Mike McCarthy calling. And same thing has happened for Dak. And whatever Dallas does, whether they keep Mike or move away from him or do whatever it is they're going to do, it's going to be a wild ride. But I just think that to back onto what you said, sorry, the tangent is always fun to go into. I just don't know if Dallas is going to be able to do that good of a job stopping the run, and if both and Raheem have big games, that's going to limit Dak's opportunities. And as you and I both know, Dak throws, even when he throws for 400 and makes 90% of his passes, he throws a duck or two, and those ducks increase when there is pressure, especially if especially if your defense, minus the Seattle game. Um, I think it's going to be a tough game for Dallas to overcome. But hopefully there'll be no weather, so I won't be able to say that'll be it'll just be a clean game of football, and hopefully things work out. But I don't have the utmost confidence.
Okay, well, we'll certainly find out. And that seems like a pretty solid place to end off on. Again, thank you for watching. We do we do have the self-awareness to know that we have been gone for 2 months. Um, and
Grad school, man, and working.
yes, having a full-time job shockingly does create a lot of lack of desire to do anything other than work. But um we do want to be a little bit more consistent. So our goal is to to get an episode out for the Detroit game, an episode out for Washington maybe, but definitely do an episode for the episodes for the postseason. So that is our goal. And
It will happen.
we will share some more updates as that gets closer and move them there. But yeah, have a great whenever any of you watch it. Have a great rest of your day. Have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, and let's all hope for a great finish to the Cowboy season.
Yeah. Happy holidays. Go Cowboys. Hopefully they don't ruin anybody's Christmas Eve dinner. Like they have been known to do on Thanksgiving in years past. But um, hopefully they for the 10th time prove that or just show that I, am a little wrong about this team. But that's
Very
all we
well.
have for you tonight. Yeah, well, I guess we'll talk about it next week, I'm sure. But that's all
We
we
definitely
have.
will. But yeah,
Good night,
go
y'all.
Cowboys
Go Cowboys.
and take care, everyone.